All right, guys, my name is Dax Castro. I am an Adobe certified PDF accessibility trainer. And in this session, we're going to walk through the State of Digital Accessibility report developed by Level Access in collaboration with the G3, ICT, and IAAP. I happen to be a member of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And I want to start off by saying this is not to slam anyone. This is not a look what they did wrong. This is knowledge. This is awareness. This is education. And I'm going to show you the ways to implement the fixes that are needed for this document. Now, I just feel like if we are putting ourselves out there as subject matter experts, as people giving advice to others on how to create more accessible documents, whether it's tips on an accessible meeting or on an accessible PowerPoint or on accessible webinars, or it's the end of the year legal reviews or the end of the year digital accessibility, we need to walk the talk. And you're going to see what I mean when I walk through this document. We have to set a basic level of accessibility. If we don't set the example for those out there doing this kind of work, who else is going to, right? So again, not a slam. This is simply about awareness and understanding. So the first thing you would expect that if we distribute a document, that it passes the accessibility checker. So if I'm getting this document, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the accessibility checker and I'm just going to see what happens. Now, I would assume that the first two is going to be color, the use of color and meaningful text, right? Which it is, logical reading order and color contrast. But this next one, we have a tagged annotation fail and a tab order fail. Well, tab order is because usually when they've inserted a page at the end of a document, they've already created it and they're trying to merge two different documents together, they'll sometimes insert another page. And when you do that, sometimes you get the tab order fail. It's a really easy fix. You can fix it a couple of different ways. You can right click here and go fix, or you can go over to your organized pages, right? Right click on this and go to page properties and then see where it says tab order, page properties tab order says unspecified, right? Say use document structure, hit OK and hit close. Now, if we come back here and we do check again, that goes away, right? Again, we could have just right clicked on it and hit fix. It would have been fine. Now, this tagged annotation error is a simple one. This is where we have multi-line URLs, and what happens is that it splits the URL. And if we go look, show in the content panel, we can see we have a link here and we have a link here, but we really only have content for this link. And we can find that by going here and looking at our nearby text and go find tag from selection, right? And then we can come down here and we can see we have this link. So the link has both of the pieces of text that it needs, but the link OBJR only has the level access. This is because someone tried to combine this link, or it was exported and the program they exported it from didn't do it correctly. But what they end up with is there was probably at one point two different link OBJRs, and somebody simply deleted one and not the other. So then you end up with, and not combined it. So then you get a missing link annotation, because like we saw in the content panel here, not the order panel, but the content panel, we actually still do have two links, right? So it's saying, hey, you've only got one link here, but you've got two links here. What do we want to do with this, right? So if we were to right click on this, we don't have the ability to artifact this, but what we can do, and we don't have the ability to delete it either, right? So how do you do it? You have to reset this link. So we're going to go back into our tags panel, right? And then we can't delete, we can delete this tag, right? But if we do that, watch what happens. So this tag is gone. We go back to our accessibility checker and we do check again. Now we get two instead of one. So that didn't help us very much at all, right? So let's undo that. There's our link OBJR. What we're going to do is we're going to copy our link location first, and then we're going to reset this so that there's just one OBJR. So we're going to go ahead. Now we're going to hit delete link. And you can see we've gone back to just this, the piece of text and then the other piece of text. Now we need to right click on, we need to highlight this actually. There we go. We'll get all of it since they have the period in there too. And then now this is interesting, right? So Acrobat will automatically recognize a URL and try to make it a URL. The problem is if I'm using a screen reader, this version doesn't have any link OBJR in the tags tree. So for me as a screen reader user, I don't get to know that this is a link, right? It will not announce link when you get to this using JAWS or NVDA. And that's why we have to actually set the link. A lot of people will go through and they'll actually delete all of their live links, making Acrobat do the recognizable links, but really they're doing a disservice to people using a screen reader because they can't actually access those links. So now that we have this highlighted, we're gonna right click and we're gonna hit delete link. Looks like there was a link in there before. Now we're gonna do create link and we're gonna open a web page. We're going to paste this in, and I know that's highlighting both, but we're going to fix that here in a second, and hit OK. So what it did is it created the link OBJR within this and inside this paragraph, right? So what we need is a span. New tag, span. There's our span. We're going to put our link in the span, right? So now we have our link and there. So now we have our regular paragraph, we have our span, and then we have our link OBJR, and we're good to go, right? So that takes care of all of it. We have the link. Now, if we go back into our accessibility checker and we do check again, both of them go away. This is now a correct link, and a screen reader is going to read it automatically. Now, we've passed the document, right? We've passed the accessibility checker. So this would be the first litmus test. Does it pass the checker? Now, the next thing we want to know is it meaningful, right? You want to make sure that your heading levels and links and images and alt text, all of that is correct, right? So what we're trying to comply with here is the info and relationships. So that's WCAG 1.3.1, right? Info and relationships. It says that structure and relationships conveyed through presentation can be programmatically determined or are available in text. In other words, if it's a heading on the page, is it a heading in the tags tree? Now, the first thing I will tell you is in here, we've got this page intentionally left blank, right? For people using a screen reader, there is no page. There's no page in here. It doesn't say you're moving from page 1 to page 2, from page 2 to page 3, and all of a sudden you get to page 2 and it says blank, or it doesn't say anything, right? So there's no reason that this page intentionally left blank is actually here for a person using a screen reader. Now you could say, well, it's there for a visual user, so we want to let people know for a screen reader. Sure, you could make that argument, but from a usability standpoint, there is no page in the tags tree. So there's no reason to annotate or call out that this page is blank in the document. So I would actually artifact this. It's not the end of the world or bad that it's not there. It just isn't needed from a screen reader standpoint. Okay. Now the rest of this looks pretty good. Here's all our text. All paragraphs are all assigned correctly. And then they go back up into the figure, and the alt text for the figure says Timothy Stephen Springer's signature, which is great. Not a problem there. We go on to page 4 and wait, what do we got here? So this is obviously a heading on the page, and this goes back to information and relationships. Forward by Alexander LeBeau, President G3 ICT, right? So this is definitely visually set up as a heading. So there's no reason why this shouldn't be a heading on the page. Now, that's when you start to think, okay, well, let's take a look. We have H2, H2, H3. Okay, so if this is an H2, we're only using H1 for the title. Then in actuality, when we get down here to page 4, this really should be an H2, right? Because it is a forward. Matter of fact, it should be in the bookmarks. Let's take a look at the bookmarks, right? So introduction, state of accessibility. So it looks like we skip. If we go from introduction, and introduction doesn't actually, drivers and goals, relationships, about, the state of accessibility. So introduction doesn't actually go anywhere. It's not even an active hyperlink, which it should be hyperlinked to here. So let's go ahead and fix that. And we're going to highlight that and do create bookmark. We're going to delete this one, delete. So now when we go there, now that works correctly, right? So now but what we're missing is we're missing one for the table of contents and we're missing one for the forward, right? So theoretically, we'd want to have one for table of contents. And then we're going to move that up in order, right? And then one for the forward. Now you could do forward by Alex, or you could do just the word forward. It is up to you. I'm going to do all of it just because. And then we're going to move that up above, right? And then that looks like it. So what's interesting here is that this section doesn't have a heading at all. So I guess this, you would consider the state of digital accessibility the heading of the document. So we're going to go up here to sorry, I got to go back. There. Now we have it set. So if someone wanted to use the bookmarks to navigate from beginning to end through all of the different chapters, and I haven't tested that all of these are actually represented in the document, but for now, this would be correct. Now, if we didn't have any bookmarks in here at all, right? We could come in here, let's just delete these, and we could tell it to create new bookmarks from structure and pick H1 and H2, which we know all of the subsequent chapters are H2, and hit OK. And then this is going to be the state of digital accessibility. And then now, look at that, all the way down. Right now we have a lot more here than we did in the beginning. So it seems to me that the bookmarks might not have been set correctly. So we're gonna leave it back the way it was because you want to make sure that you have the ability to navigate through the document, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be the H1 or the H2 represented in the bookmarks. Here, if you look at the table of contents, you have an introduction, the state of accessibility programs. It looks like they didn't include the forward. The introduction does go to the introduction within the TOC, which is good. So that's that, right? So let's go back to where we were. We kind of got sidetracked here, right? So we go back here and now we have the forward that's set up as an H2, and then we go back and that should say Alex signature. It does. And then now we have a section with a bunch of empty P's and another section with a bunch of empty P's. And I will tell you that's because someone put a bunch of empty hard returns in here at one point and it got left in here from the tags tree. So we're going to go ahead, and since they're empty, we can just simply delete them, because now a screen reader is not going to read them. Older screen readers might hear blank, 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 but the newer ones, NVDA and JAWS, shouldn't read that at all. But you might get some older ones that will. So you want to have a clean tags tree, right? So now we go from 4 to 5, and we have H2 and then our TOC, and that all looks correct, right? And then now we go to page 6. There's our H2 again, and then here's a paragraph. Now, when you have a colon, usually what comes after it is a list of bullets, right? But they used headings here, which isn't bad. There's nothing wrong with that. Definitely, it's a visual distinction, right? That is definitely different. That paragraph there is different than this paragraph here. So it has a different designation in the tags tree as an H3, correctly so, right? And then we fixed that level access link. And then page 7 has a paragraph, and that's just fine. Then we have another H2, our paragraph, H3, paragraph. This looks good. Let's see what we've got for this figure. Okay, so one thing to note here is that chart, right? Okay, well, is it a bar chart, a pie chart? Usually when we write alt text, then there's lots of different ways to write alt text. What I'm about to say is not the only way to do it. I'm just giving you typical best practices. The first thing you want to do is define what kind of chart they're looking at. So this would be a pie chart, right? How long has your organization been actively working toward accessibility compliance? That doesn't, I mean, it's that text in the pie chart is right here in our tags tree. So this is actually a label for this pie chart, right? So I'm not sure I would even say re-include that in the pie chart. Well, I guess you could, right? Because you want to tell them what it's for. How long has your organization been actively working toward compliance? This would be fine, but I would just add the word pie, right? Pie chart showing values for how long your organization has actively been working toward accessibility compliance, and then they walk through it. But remember, they've added a bunch of hard returns in here to segregate. Sorry, I need to slow down. To segregate this out. But a screen reader doesn't read section breaks like this. Now, maybe it's for visual and for cognitive people who are using a screen reader more from a cognitive standpoint. They want to make sure it's all clear, but it's clear here in the text. There's no reason why you have to have all of this separated out. But they do go through and dictate all of the different pieces. They just did extra work that they didn't really have to do, right? Which is fine, though. There's nothing wrong with that. Here's an H3, paragraphs. And what we're doing here, guys, is walking the tags tree. This is simply going through and making sure that all of the things that are in the document on the page are represented in the tags tree. Now, I will tell you that we've gone through here, and this is a figure label, and this is a figure label here. These really should be some kind of something besides a normal paragraph, because to us as a visual user, this paragraph and this paragraph are very different. You wouldn't think that this paragraph and this paragraph have the same value or the same weight when it comes to reading a document, right? These are in essence, and this one too, are in essence the title for the figure, right? So these could even be the caption, the figure caption. You might even label these as a caption, right? So how many people are working on primary accessibility in your organization, right? And they went through and did the same thing again here. Now, this one is a different kind of chart. This is a bar chart, right? Rather than a pie chart. And someone might argue, just to be devil's advocate, somebody might argue, well, it doesn't really matter whether it's a pie chart or a bar chart, right? The fact is that it's a chart of some sort. You're giving them extra information that they don't necessarily need to know to understand the graphic. Well, true, but you could say it's a bar chart made up of human silhouettes or figures. You could just say bar chart. You could just say, chart. All of those are all correct. So it's not incorrect the way this was done, right? The other thing I will tell you is if you notice in the graphic, it says 1-3 people, but in the alt text, they very correctly put 1, 2, 3 people. Right? Because you want to make sure that the screen reader doesn't try to read that as 1 - 3. So that's great, right? All right. So that was their alt text. Then they've got an H3, then a paragraph. Now again, another figure label. I would probably call this a caption, or an H4 even, because it really is a label for the figure, right? And let's see what they've got here. A chart. So this is another bar chart. What business unit is responsible for digital accessibility, and then it walks through the different pieces. I think those are perfectly fine. Definitely this passes color contrast as well, right? So kudos to them. Paragraph, right? Now we're going into section 10. Here's another H2 paragraph. Now see here, they have an H3, and then they have a list of 5 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is great. That's just what you might want to see, right? Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And there's no reason to have those icons with alt text, which they didn't do. There's no alt text on the icons because they're just decorative. So great job there, right? Here's another H3. Now here they have H3 as a heading before the figure. This is probably the way I would have done all the other figures that we've seen thus far, having a heading before the figure. Organization size by employees, right? And let's see what they have for alt text. Chart, survey results for participants organization size. So participants should probably have an apostrophe S there, not a big deal. And then they go through and now here, they didn't do 51 to 100. They just did the dash. So this might read, and let's actually take a look at that. Let's open up JAWS here. And this is, again, where screen reader testing really makes an important
JAWS Home Manual, the 2020 State of Digital Accessibility Report - Adobe Acrobat Pro DC, Table View, AV Page View.
Right now, it's just digesting the document. So where screen reader accessibility, screen reader testing really comes into play, because you want to make sure that the user experience you're trying to present is the one that they actually get, right? So let's go ahead and go to
blank. H. Tree view less.
Oh, I'm in the tags tree.
The State of Digital Accessibility heading level 1. Page has 79 headings and 31 links. 2020-state-of-digital-accessibility-final.pdf. Level access graphic. Heading level 1. The State of Digital Accessibility. 2020.
So let's go down to the page we were just on.
Diversity and inclusion. While just 12% of accessible. About the survey participants heading level 2.
Okay, so there's our heading level 2.
The principal industries represented in the survey were heading level 3. Organization size left parent employees right parent heading level 3.
All right, so there's our organization size employees. We're down here. Now we're going to go to this
survey
graphic.
Results for participants organization size left parent employees right parent less 50. 19% 51-100. 6% 101-250. 12% 251-1000. 17% 1001-5000. 16% 5001-50,000. Space.
So do you hear how it's almost reading it backwards? It's reading 6%. And then it pauses 101-250, right? Because of the way the punctuation is in the alt text, if you're not paying attention, it really sounds like it's 19% for 51 to 100, 6% for 100 to 200. Let's read it again. Let's go back up again.
Organization size left parent employees right parent heading level 3. Chart survey results for participants organization size left parent employees right parent less 50. 19% 51-100. 6% 101-250. 12% 251-1000. 17% 1001-5000. 16% 5001-50,000. Graphic.
So did you see what happened? What happened to the rest of our alt text? We ran out of room, right? So this alt text does have a limit based on the amount of extra room that they've put in here. It's not able to get through all of the different values. Let's go back again, because just maybe I hit a key or maybe something happened.
The principal industries represented in the survey were heading level 3. Organization size left parent employees. Chart survey results for participants organization size left parent employees right parent less 50. 19% 51-100. 6% 101-250. 12% 251-1000. 17% 1001-5000. 16% 5001-50,000. Graphic.
So it stopped at 50,000 and it didn't get all the way through, right? So let's see if we can fix this. I'm going to turn off JAWS real
quick.
quick.
JAWS dialog. The 2020.
And to have a bunch of periods in here might not be the best presentation. So let's say less than 50% at less than 50 at 19, 51 to 100 at 6%, 100 to 1 at 12%, that number at 17%, 1,000 to 5,000 at 16%, 5,000 to 50,000 at 18%, and above 50. And I would do above 50,000 at 12%, right? So let's save that. We're going to make sure we move, at least move out of or tab out of that cell before we close it so that the change stays. Hit OK. We're going to hit save. Then we're going to go in and we are going to run JAWS again. Now let's hear the alt text the way we've got it modified.
Survey results for participants organization size left parent employees right parent less 50 at 19% 51-100 at 6% 101-250 at 12% 251-1000 at 17% 1001-5000 at 16%. Graphic.
So it still only goes to 5,000. So there's definitely a limit to how much alt text that this is reading.
Context menu. List box.
Let's take a look at what we get.
The 2020
with NVDA.
Well, okay. Okay, the 2020 State of Digital Accessibility Report Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. Graphic page 1 level access. Heading level 1 the State of Digital Accessibility. Graphic 2020 surrounded by icon. Page 1 in collaboration with G3IC. Page the state challenges. Most accessible. When accessibility. Divert page. The principal industries. Organization size. Employees. Heading level 3. Graphic chart.
Now let's
Survey
hear what we
results for
get.
participants. Organization size. Employees. Less 50 at 19%. 51 100 at 6%. Graphic 101 250 at 12%. 251 1000 at 17%. 1001 5000 at 16%. 5001 50,000 at 18%. Above 50,000 at 12%.
So in this instance, NVDA does actually read all of the alt text. Now, I recently updated my JAWS, literally just yesterday. So maybe something happened in the update where JAWS doesn't, it's reset the limit for alt text. I'll have to check that out. But you can tell now.
Participants, organization size, employees, less 50 at 19%, 51,100 at 6%.
So you could see it says 51,100 at 6%. So it doesn't even read the hyphen that's in there, right? So that might be something you want to think of, right? So we went in the previous alt text and added the word to 51 to 100. In NVDA, it's reading just 51,100. In JAWS, it reads 51 or 51-100 until it gets into the thousands. So again, this goes back to understanding the nuances of the different screen readers and trying to get the best of both worlds, right? You're not ever going to make this, perfect, but we can make it as good of a user experience as we can.
Object property.
There we are.
Alternate text. 10 peak color out NVDA.
So let's go ahead and turn off.
Speak. What note dragon NVDA install pending exit. My chart. Okay. The 20.
All right. Enough of that. So I would probably come in here and change all of these to 2, right? Copy that. And then paste, 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 paste. Did I get them all? At 19, 51 to 200, 100 to 250, all that looks like, okay. So that looks like we got it all, right? So now when we turn on NVDA.
Welcome, okay. Chart, organize. H. Graphic page 1 left, page 1 the state of digital accessibility, level 1/40, 1314/40, 10 organization. Roles of survey participants heading level 3.
So now when we go back in here to this chart.
Graphic 101 to 250 at 12%. Graphic 101 to 250 at 12%. 251 to 1000 at 17%. 1001 to 5000 at 16%. 5001 to 50,000 at 18%. Above 50,000 graphic at 12%. Heading level 3 roles of survey participants.
Right? So that's a much better user experience. We're definitely getting all of the information that we expect to get visually, we are getting from the screen reader user experience. Now, that wasn't the experience when we started. So the only way to know is to go through and actually test, right? Now, is it the end of the world that that's a hyphen or it's a dash or it only read part of the numbers? No. Could you go through the information? Sure. But again, this goes back to trying to make sure we get the best user experience possible for those using a screen reader. And it just takes a little bit of detective work. Right, so let's test some.
Product owner or project manager, 11%. Graphic chart, roles of survey participants. Testing /QA, 17% development, 17% UX /design, 17% executive.
17%
Heading level 3 roles
executive.
of graphic chart, roles of survey participants. Testing /QA, 17% development, 17% UX /design, 17% executive. Chart,
Yeah,
roles of
that's
survey
not.
participants. Testing /QA, 17%. Development, 17%. UX /design, 17%. Executive, 11%. Product owner or project manager, 11%. 1011/40.
Yeah,
1011
again, this goes back to.
Start window. 10. The 2020 state. One. Uber. Running app. No. Dragon. Sit. NVD. Exit. Okay. The 20.
I wish they had a temporary pause to toggle NVDA on and off. Would make my job so much easier. All right. So again, we have that same issue where once it starts reading, if it doesn't get it all, it starts to almost read backwards. Right? Because it doesn't read charts roles of survey participants testing Q&A 17%. It reads 17% development. So, and then it reads 17% UX, 17% executive, right? Which isn't correct because 17 is not executive. 11% is executive. And again, so this would require going back through, right? So I guess we should do that. Let's go back into properties not for that one, but for this one, right? And we're going to change this. So chart roles of survey participants. And then we're going to say testing QA at 17%. Development at 17%. All right, so let's make sure we got this right. Charts world, testing QA at 17%, development at 17%, UX at 17, executive at 11, product owner manager at 11, other at 10, content creation at 10, legal/compliance, right? So I will tell you that legal/compliance, it's not going to read slash. So I would just put legal or compliance at 17, or compliance at 7%, right? So that's going to be your best voice experience there. Hit save and close. All right, we're good, right? And then we have consumer products and services include retail, restaurants, travel, and hospitality, right? So that is an asterisk. Where is this an asterisk for? I'm not seeing it. Consumer products and services. Oh, that's up here. Principal industries represented in the survey were. So really, we should have a consumer products and services should have an asterisk up here to note this footnote, but I guess it's okay that it doesn't. It's not the end of the world, right? Then we go to page 11, which has a paragraph on it, right? And then page 12, H2 again, right? Again, this should probably have a heading instead of just a paragraph. And then here we have a list, right? Now, in this instance, this list makes it really nice because we don't have to go through all those gymnastics that we went through on those other graphics. So this might be a better approach to some of those other graphics, because up here, there's nothing saying this couldn't be actual text and made into a list, well, at least for this one, right? You could make these into a list if this were selectable text. So this is a great approach that applies when you can, right? Because then at this point, the bar chart part of it's really just a visual treatment and isn't really part of what's going on. All right, a paragraph, and then another list, which is great. And then we go to page 13. And the first thing we have on page 13 is what? The table. Well, the first thing really in the page 13 is the H3, and then the paragraph. Again, this is a label, and then a figure, right? Now, I will tell you that I don't have low vision, but I have a really hard time noticing that this is different than this at this level, right? So, and there is no key here. So there's no key, right? So we have a blue dot and then this teal dot with the slashes going through it. I guess these are just, they don't really mean anything. They are just to differentiate one value from another. The size looks like it's commensurate with the, well, I don't know, because this dot is smaller. I guess the dot size is a representation of how many employees, right? It gets bigger as it goes, right? Anyway, maybe I'm overthinking it, but if you have a difference in color here, if it means something, you should have a key that tells you what it means, right? Now, the other thing is that you've got a, okay, so you've got this figure here, and it says percentage of organizations with a vendor relationship. And it says chart, vendor relationship by organization and size, percentage of organization with the vendor relationship, right? Well, you're just repeating what you've already got right here. Why go through this process of adding alt text to this figure that is just a repeat of what you already have, right? So chart, vendor relationship. So I would say chart vendor relationship by organization size and percentage is it is already set up here. And you're going to tell them what the different percentages are down here, right? So vendor relationship by organization size, right? So I would just do that. And then, but it's not wrong. You know, I'll go back, right? So it's not wrong. Oops. I went back too far. It undid the other figure from before. All right, so let's go back here. So it's not wrong that this says what it says. So I'm not going to correct that. I mean, there's really nothing saying it can't say that. But again, we know that this needs to say at, right? Because it's going to read this in a backwards way after it gets the first comma, right? And you could leave it this way. You could compress it all up into one sentence. It's up to you. But a screen reader doesn't know that these are all broken out by sentence. So now that we've got add in there, it's going to read it correctly, except for we need to add two, because we know the screen reader is going to read it differently. And then over is fine. Now, less than, you know what? The less than symbol is, to me, is a cognitive barrier. I always forget which direction means what. And so having the word less than sure makes it a lot easier to understand than trying to, okay, wait, the Pac-Man's eating it or going away from it. Is it less than or I hate thinking about that, right? And that's maybe my cognitive disability, but it's nice to have the text there, right? So we hit close, tab out of that, hit close. Now we know that's going to be correct, right? And then we've got the H3. But what do we have to do? We're dealing with this table here, right? So this table is a representation of this bar chart, or this line chart, right? And we could have a table summary in here if we wanted to. NVDA will read a table summary. Let's see if they actually did put a table summary in here. So if we go Control-Shift-U for read order, select our table, and then do edit table summary. Nope, no table summary. So this is where you could have put that text. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and go out, go back to this figure here, properties, and grab this text. Hit close, go back to our table, go to our table summary. Now, I will tell you that JAWS does not read table summaries, but NVDA does. So if we go back in here, right click, edit table summary, and paste. Vendor relationship by the organization size and percentage of organizations with a vendor relationship. This makes perfect sense, right? It's a summary of what's going on inside this table, right? Hit close, there. Now, let's check that scope of our table. So we're going to right click and hit table editor, and we're going to select all these, and these should all be scope of column, which they are, and these should be scope of row, which they're not. They're set up as a data cell. So these are heading cells with a scope of row, because you want to hear, right? If you're in this cell right here in 13, you want to hear 1,000 to 5,000 multi-year 13%. 1,000 to 5,000 year to year 12%. But if you don't set this up as a scope, it's scope it as a heading cell, it's not going to read that depending upon what screen reader you're using. Also, again, we have this hyphen up here. It's going to say 1K to 5K. It's going to say 1K-5K. And NVDA is not going to read it at all. It's just going to say 1K, 5K. So you want to make sure that you're using the right language and that you test it with a screen reader and that you're okay with how it sounds. If you're okay with it and you think it's a fine compromise, then, it's up to you. But again, we're focusing on what the best user experience is, right? Now, if it were me on this page, I'm going to set this table in the right read order. Right? So there's our H3, our paragraph, our percentage, our figure. This table really goes after that figure, right? And then our H3. Again, this should be a heading of some sort, although, stylistically, if you're going to do it one way across the board, do it that same way all the way across the board. Don't switch up in the middle. So we're going to leave it the way it is, right? And then here, we've got properties, and again, chart, vendor relationship by industry and group, public sector, at, copy, paste, at, right? And then hit save. All right, so that's going to be just fine. Moving on, now we've got this paragraph above, then our H2, Inclusions is H3. This looks fine. And then we've got a list, which is great. And let's check out what our list says. L body, they've combined. Now see, this is a great example of how you can be creative and still code compliant. So they took this is a manual thing. This doesn't just come automatically out of a program. Someone took the time to actually do this. They created a list item, then they took the one, be inclusive, and then they added the 68 while keeping it visually separate in the graphic. Right? This allows for a really good user experience as they walk through this data. Really great example of how to create a bar chart and make it accessible, right? So there's the end of that. Then our beginning here, and we have our H3. Now we have a table and another table. Let's go into our table editor, and we're going to change. So these are all going to be cell properties. These are all going to be actually, they're not all going to be. That one is not a, the top one is a column header. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, cell properties. Column is set correctly. These guys are going to be, I hate it when it does that. Cell properties are going to be row headers. Now, I will tell you that WCAG, the WebCon Accessibility Guidelines, says that if your table is a simple table, just like this, there is no, you're not required to set scope for the table. However, PDF UA says, nope, if you have a table, it's got to have scope for everything that is a heading cell. So it just depends on which standard you're trying to comply with, right? So, and then we can go into this table and go to Q for table editor. And then these should all probably be set to column, and they are. And these is an extra. We're going to set them to row, and there they are. So now these tables are compliant, right? You could add, again, we added it. You saw how we added a table summary before. That's not required. But it is, when you don't have data or text that supports why you're trying to show someone a table, it's always good to have some summary instance, right? Now up here, we've got this summary of legal risk to drivers or legal risk drivers. And it gives us some drivers were roughly the same across the top 5 categories. Given the litigation trends, it's unsurprising that companies are much more concerned with the legal risk, right? So here, these two tables really support this text. So sure, you don't, it's not necessary that you had a table summary, right? Then we get to H2. Now there's a list, H3, paragraphs. Now here is another example where we could have had a chart or this could have been just a graphic, but they took the time to actually make this a list, and they walked through each of the pieces like they did before, which is great, right? So kudos to them, the really great way of doing it, right? H3, H4, that's fine, right? Paragraph, H3, paragraph. Now see, again, this, you have a H3 here, but then you have these subheadings, but it's a list. So I'm okay with that, right? It's you have a heading, then you have a paragraph, and then you have your list of 3 items, and it goes through the same there. There's nothing wrong with the way that's done. H4, right? And again, when a lot of the things that I'm going through in this document really are best user experience. They're not they did it wrong. It is, did you check what the user experience is going to be like? Is this what you were expecting to happen when they digested it with a screen reader? And some of it is compliance issues, but a lot of these are user experience issues. So H3, paragraphs. So now this is a list, right? So this is a list with a paragraph. So they're going to have an L body. Oh, I'm not sure I like this. Right? So these are nested lists. So they've got a list item here with the list item name, but then they've got another list inside it with another LI. That basically to a user is a double nested list. And that's really not a good user experience. Really what this should be, let's expand all of this, right? So we're going to take these pieces here, and we can select them all at once. So this is a really easy fix, right? Just want to make sure we get all the right ones. Properties and paragraph. There's nothing wrong with having a paragraph as part of a list, right? It's totally fine. So you have your L body, and then we're going to take this paragraph and put it up in there. And we're going to take this paragraph and put it up in there and delete this other sublist, right? And so make sure we get these right. Correct, correct. Boom. All right. So now we have the same effect. We have a list that has an L body and a paragraph, right? And we hit save. I want to check our accessibility checker here real quick. Yep, we're still good. All right. So there is nothing wrong with having this paragraph inside this list. It's a list item, and a list item can have lots of things inside of it, right? And one of those is a paragraph. But to nest a double list when visually this isn't if these were labeled 1A, 1B, 1C, and then 2A, 2B, 2C, I could totally see having a double set of lists. But since it's just a paragraph, really it should just be a paragraph. Makes it for a much easier user experience, right? Because you don't want to hear list one item, list one item, list one item every time it moves in and out of a list. Especially, I'm not a big fan of list one items anyway. All right, so then we go down here and we've got H2, paragraph, and a list, which is just fine. H2, paragraph, and then we go down here. Here's our figure. And again, we've got our normal fixes for this list. So we're going to go in here, and then we're going to change this to less than 2. And then we'll fix all of these one at a time. More than, right? I wish you could expand this. Boy, that would be so nice. Adobe people, if you're watching, make this expand. How many people are listen? All right, so let's see. More than 250 developers, 10 plus. Okay, so there is 2 sets here. 2 to 25, 2 to 99 developers. So this says organizations. So I would say 1 to 3 organizations. Right? Is that what that says? Organizations with fewer than 250 developers are most likely to have 1 to 3 people working primarily on accessibility. Okay, so 1 to 3 people, right? So this should be 1 to 3 people. Let's put that space in there. See, again, confusing user experience, and I can see 10. So this would be 10 or more people, right? 2. All right. Less than 25 developers, 1 to 3 people, 56%. That all looks good. All right, close. All right, so there's a much better alt text. Now, notice that we changed it in the alt text itself, but look at the mouse over. The mouse over doesn't change until you save and close this and reopen it, right? See, here it is here, but this visual experience doesn't change until you actually save and close and reopen. Right? So just realize that's a thing, right? So matter of fact, just to prove it, right? So we're there and we know that it was already there. Still there, even though I hit save. But now if I go back in here, Now it's updated. See how it's updated now? Okay, so I'm not a liar. All right, so let's go back down to where we were, which is right here. Right, page 20. All right, H3, paragraph. There's a figure. And again, we're going to have to go through this whole thing, right? Planning at when you copy and paste, it doesn't take too long, right? Make sure we tab out of that cell. All right, we're good to go. H4, paragraphs, those are fine. Now we've got paragraph, and let's see what we do here. Oh, we got lists, right? A list, and that looks great. Nothing wrong with that. List. We've got another paragraph. We got another paragraph. Now this ... these ellipses are not going to get read as ellipses, right? So I don't know. You keep them, don't keep them, whatever. It's not. It's actually, well, you'll hear period or ... depending upon or nothing depending upon which screen reader you use, right? So as we go through that, H2, there's our paragraph, a figure, properties, organizations, all at 39, partnered with accessible vendors. And I would say, I would do this. 53 partnered with accessible vendors, with an accessible vendor. And then all organizations, 39% of all organizations, period. And then 53% partnered with accessible vendors, with an accessible vendor, right? Okay. Again, having this repeat from what's here in the text is a redundant user experience, and I definitely would not suggest that. No one wants to hear that stuff twice. Okay. List, their normal list way, which is great. H3, paragraph, list, H3, figure, chart, organizations that include accessibility when writing products. Yeah, see, they're just repeating this same figure text here. I'm not going to fix it, but definitely I wouldn't do that. 64% partner with an accessible vendor. Tab, close. Paragraph, properties. And really this would be 70% of all organizations. And then 75% partnered with accessible vendor. And I might even say, of those, 75% partnered with an accessible vendor. That makes it much clearer. And again, once you start making this pattern, you really do want to go back and make sure you change the other ones as well, because what you want is a good pattern, a good user experience all the way through. All right, paragraph H2. Okay, so we're not going to go through all of these and fix every single one of them, but I just want to walk through and see if we can find anything else. List, H3s, those are headings. That's a heading. H2. So this is normally what I would do. I would walk through the tags tree and just make sure that everything that I have, that my heading tags are right, that my alt text is all correct and makes sense. And if I see anything that's that is egregious, I'm going to fix it. Now here they have a list inside a list, and I agree with this. However, I probably would just make this a paragraph and then a list of 2 items, a paragraph, a list of 3. But this is perfectly right and semantic to have a list within a list. It just creates kind of a cumbersome user experience. So you're going to hear for this, it's going to say list 3 items. 1, organization size. List level 2, 2 items. Bullet, fewer than 50 employees. Bullet, more than 50 employees. Out of list. 2, industry. List, 2 item. List level 2, 2 items. So it's going to go back and forth between the 2 lists, which you know, is okay and it's semantic, but it really creates a cumbersome user experience. Honestly, this is fine. If it was more than a 2-level list, I would try a different approach just because it makes it a really hard user experience to navigate through all of these different lists. All right, so now we're getting into H3, paragraphs. There's your list, which is just fine. Here they have a nice table, a nice line chart, and they do show different values. I would definitely probably make these symbols different so that the circles are on the solid line are circles, and maybe the dots on the dashed line are triangles. That would further make it more different. And then you would add those triangle and circles up into the menu items there. Again, they've broken out a bunch of different things. We do know that, you know, again, this comma and period thing is going to start to sound backwards as you get through more than just a couple items. So definitely worth addressing. And then H3s, there's a list, heading, figure. All right, it looks like it's a lot more of the same. Now here they artifacted this graphic over here, and rightly so. It's just decorative. It's just illustrating 45%. So you don't have to have anything here for that graphic. And there's our paragraphs. Let's see what they did here, right? So formulas are always a hard thing to do, right? So you typically make an image of it and you set it as alt text. Let's see how they did this here. So we're going to hear $XXX. Actually, let's load this into a screen reader because I'm interested.
Well, okay, the 2020 graphic page 1 level access, heading level 1 the state. What were the first actions what were the graphic page 1 2020 surrounded by slash page toolbar page 1
Okay.
document 1 2 slash 4 number lock on page number toolbar page 5 document if an number lock off. If an organization receives a demand letter or if that's the survey revealed that prepare for significant expenses for legal counsel. The majority of organizations who used external counsel spent over 40 hours with their attorney. S.
Okay,
The majority
let's
of
hear what
organizations
this
who used
is.
external counsel spent over 40 hours with their attorney. S. Given the hourly rate of a quality attorney, this is no small line item. $XXX, YYY hourly rate, X, 40 hours, equals, $ZZZZ estimated cost. Heading level 3 internal expenses also add up quickly.
So, yeah, I'm not sure that is a good explanation for that, right?
Give the majority of
Prepare
organizations
for
who
a
use external counsel.
significant expense. So what they're trying to show here is whatever their their hourly range is times 40 hours is going to equal the estimated cost. So to me, this seems like it's just it's not a,
X, 40
oh, well, here,
complaint and bring their the majority of organizations also.
so they're just trying to say, hey, it's hourly times 40 hours can equal a crap ton of money, right? So I'm not even sure I would try to walk through this in a tags tree. I might just put a figure label around this and say, rate times hours equals estimated cost. It's really a decorative item,
40 hours.
right? Because you're not really getting anything out of this.
$ZZZZ estimated cost.
And $ZZZ estimated cost. I'm not.
Given the
I don't think this really tells.
YYY hourly rate. X, 40 hours, equals, $ZZZZ estimated cost.
I mean, I get what they were trying to do here, being able to walk through the different formula, the different items, which I think is fine from an approach. But I think given what this is, which is just a graphic visual representation of the fact that it's hourly rate times hours equals estimated cost, I'm not sure that it's causing a cognitive barrier in that I'm trying to figure out what it actually means when it really doesn't mean anything other than, hey, get ready to spend whatever their rate is times 40 hours. So I might artifact that.
3530 level up.
Interesting.
Jaws 20. Run. Note. Citrix NVDA. Exit. $3 X. Okay. The majority.
So again, this is why we test, right? We test these things to make sure that we understand what's going to happen when the user walks through it. And I think this is the thing that I think most organizations do not do because they don't understand how to use this. Now, I'm sure Level Access, I've used them as a vendor to come in and teach how to use a screen reader. Matter of fact, my very first screen reader course was from Level Access. So I respect them highly. And they are a great group of people. And they have a lot of really great people that work for Level Access. I can't say enough great things about them. This is just a walkthrough of a document to walk through some of the principles. So, this is not a look how terrible they are, or why aren't they using a screen reader, or they didn't do this, or they didn't do that. They have a great staff. They do a great job. But this is really about testing the nuances of a document to create the best user experience possible, right? So there's an H2. We've got a list and a paragraph, an H3. And then we know that there's a link in here, and the link is set to the levelaccess.com, which is perfectly right? And then a more list and some headings. Almost to the end. Again, here is this page left intentionally blank. I would definitely create artifact because there is no page. It's like I tell in my other classes, there is no spoon, right? There is no page. It is a list of tags, and the screen reader is going through those tags. Level access, and then all of their links to all of their different socials. So I know this was a long video. This has been almost an hour, but hopefully it's given you an idea of how to walk through a document to test for accessibility, to make sure that the user experience is what you expect. Some things are not straightforward, and some things you just assume are going to appear one way, or, well, of course the screen reader is going to read 1-3 2 as 1-3 or 1 to 3, but that's not really true, and that's not always the case. So make sure that you test with a screen reader just those things that you think are going to be problematic. Walk through the first couple pages, and then you'll get a good idea of what are some of the things you might want to address in the future. Again, my name is Dax Castro. If you are included, if your job has to do with document accessibility, you can go to my Facebook page. I have a Facebook group with about 650 members now. Maybe it's even more, called PDF Accessibility. Matter of fact, PDF Accessibility Facebook group is right here, and we have 700 members, and we have a lot of great people that have a lot of great information and a lot of good knowledge to share. So if you're struggling with accessibility, head on over to the Facebook group PDF Accessibility. My name is Dax Castro. I am an Adobe certified PDF accessibility trainer. It has been my pleasure to walk you through this document. Hopefully you learned something and you'll create more better user experience in your next accessible document. Thanks.